details tonight on a twist in the search for a couple missing in the outback.
Jennie Kehlet went missing in the Goldfields near Sandstone. Her husband Raymond was found at the bottom of a 12-metre abandoned mine shaft, but Jennie had disappeared.
Any progress is good progress, and obviously the police have been busy with this in the background. Hopefully something comes of it.
At this point in time, we're not seeing anything that suggests criminality.
Are you serious?
Yes.
We've only got one side of the story.
We find Jennie, we will find out what happened.
It just doesn't happen out here. It's not normal behaviour.
Did you deliberately mislead the police about where you went with Ray and Jennie in Sandstone in March 2015?
No.
It's not like them. They're experienced. They are not lost. Something terrible has happened.
I can hear it like it was yesterday. He actually said that's how you make a lie believable, is it's got a grain of truth.
As we record this, it's the 22nd of March 2026, a date that sits at the centre of this story. It marks 11 years to the day since Graham Milne left the Sandstone region after camping with his work colleagues Ray and Jennie Kehlet, a trip they never returned from. Over the course of this series, we've explored what is known about that trip, along with the findings of the 2020 coronial inquest. Serious questions have been raised, both about the handling of the case and about aspects of Graham Milne's account of the trip. We've made multiple attempts over the past year to contact Graham for comment. We've not received a response. Beyond a single television interview in 2015 and his testimony at the coronial inquest, very little has been heard publicly from Graham himself. So in an effort to better understand the context around this story, we spoke to people who have known him personally. What follows is one of those interviews, a conversation with Graham Milne's daughter, Sarah. It's a deeply personal account, shaped by her lived experience and her own views of what may have happened on that camping trip in 2015. We're grateful to Sarah for her bravery in sharing her story with such clarity and care. This interview touches on difficult subject matter, and as such, listener discretion is advised. It's also important to note that Graham Milne is presumed innocent unless proven otherwise in a court of law. Finally, the views expressed in this interview are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers.
I heard, obviously, about what happened with Jennie and Ray, actually via a family member that lives over that way, and speaking to family back here, and it was sort of brought to our attention, and just felt sick. The second I heard it, I felt sick, and much to my shame, it's taken me a number of years to reach out to Dave to say, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I just sent him a message on Messenger, and I said, basically, I'm so sorry that this has happened, and, my heart goes out to you guys, to all of you, and I'm just so sorry, and please know that not everyone in the family is like that. Some of us have a heart, and just, let them know that our thoughts, prayers, well wishes, good vibes, all of those, are with him and the families, and just that some of us want answers as well. And it's just grown from there.
So I guess just to back up a little bit, because and as much as you're comfortable, because Graham is such a, he's only spoken to the media once, there's not a lot known about him and his background. And I guess just generally, what was your childhood like? Where are you from? What part of the world? And what was the general family dynamic growing up?
Born and raised in Invercargill, New Zealand, so right down the bottom of the South Island. If you go too far past that, you'll end up with the penguins in Antarctica. And generally speaking, growing up, I'm an only child, so lonely. So I always wanted a brother or sister. I would even settle for a brother, you know, but never got it. Never got either one. So it was lonely. But yeah, no, it was, you know, I was a spoiled only child. You know, I had all the toys that you could ask for. And look, he worked hard as a father. He worked hard at work. He always worked. He worked hard. The bills got paid. He always had a job. He always worked hard. He was not a bum or anything like that. We always, there was family events that we all went to, and it was quite normal. It was all relatively normal, other than when he was in the army and he, would go away with that. But that's relatively normal too, to a large degree. There'll be lots of people who'll understand what that is, what that's like. It was normal.
So I had heard your dad was in the military. So was that and obviously he was, when in the case with Ray and Jennie, he was in emergency services. So what was his general career sort of background prior to military and afterwards? What was the general trajectory there?
Well, first off, about the army was he was territorials. So there's lots of jokes about the Terries. Not real army, weekend warriors army. So he wasn't full-time military. Okay, that's the first thing that I think needs to be clarified, because the conception out there is that he's, high-grade military. No, he was territorial. So yes, he went away. Yes, he did exercises. Yes, he did, there was time and all that, but no, it wasn't a career. That was something else. His work was trucking. So, yeah, trucks. Trucks and trucks. I grew up with trucks and trucks. Like, he did line haul, he did stock, he did... he was an owner driver, self-employed driver at various times. So, both he did it as an employee, did it as self-employed. Yeah, he drove various trucks.
Yeah, is there anything else, I guess, that you're comfortable sharing, just in terms of general family dynamic and how Graham was as a dad growing up, and to paint a fuller picture of him as a person?
Yeah, sorry, I'm probably going to cry. Look, I do try and be fair. Like I say, he we'd go fishing, we'd go camping, so in a large sense it was normal. There was times the family dynamic was wasn't the warmest, shall we say. Wasn't, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether that's just hindsight or, with what's happened, colouring some of my perspective, some of my memories. I don't know. I mean, let's put it this way, because we were talking about military, one of my arms only go, you put your arm up behind your back to like scratch between your shoulder blades. One of my arms doesn't go very far, because he used to grab my wrist and twist it up behind my back and pull it up behind my head. So I've got, it's probably scar tissue in my neck, my shoulder. He used to grab and squeeze my little fingers closed, just the little finger. Now that sounds really simple, and you can do it to yourself. And it doesn't feel like much, but if you do it to someone else, it's crippling. You can drop them to their knees. And he used to do that all the time, and my little fingers are very bent, shall we say. No, I mean, look, context, back then, an ass whooping was relatively normal. It's different than it is today, right? context is important too. So he had moments, you know. I remember one particular time I hate Brussels sprouts, and he caught me spitting them out my bedroom window. I'd shoved them in my mouth to get away from the dining table, and he caught me spitting them out my bedroom window, and by God, I got a whopping of a lifetime for that one. He wasn't generally violent, as probably contradictory as that sounds, but there were moments.
Obviously, Graham's had some nicknames over the years. I mean, Grumpy seems to be one that he's latched onto. And did he have, out of interest, any other nicknames growing up, or any other things that stood out to you in that regard?
Yeah, I believe he was nicknamed Secret Squirrel as a toddler.
So what do you make of that in light of this case?
Quite a lot. I make a lot of that. It's an important little flag.
How, and this is a big question, but how did Graham treat your mother over the years? What was their relationship kind of like as you were growing up?
Their relationship was, I mean, you know, and again, this is probably coming through the lens of, you know, now being an adult and having had a marriage and relationships and all that myself. But in hindsight, it wasn't warm. You know, there wasn't I don't know, I suppose there was a general fondness, but it was like he was over on one side and she was on the other, and they came together for family things, but then, like, at home there was no affection, not that I saw. There was, you know, I mean, I'm a naturally huggy person, probably much to a lot of people's annoyance, but I'm a huggy person. I like to, you know, greet people with a hug, and that's what I've done with my partners coming home. You know, give them a hug. You know, even before all of this, you know, life is short. You just appreciate every day, and that's the way I am with people that are important to me. But I don't recall seeing that. I just don't. I have a memory of one happy occasion, and it is nothing but suspicion to this day in my mind as to what the context was surrounding that, because I don't know, but I am incredibly suspicious of it.
Yeah, right. In what regards, if you don't mind sharing?
So we ended up we were at Queen's Park, which is a big open public car park, a little bit like Kings Park in Perth, I suppose, with, you know, children's playground and things like that. And we had a blanket, had a picnic with KFC, and both Mum and Dad were laughing and happy, like really, you know, really, really happy. And I'm, to this day, I don't know what that was about, because it was so odd. And it was so far from normal.
Yeah, as much as you don't mind going over, I guess, to give the bigger context of when your friend back in high school moved in with you guys, if you can give us the context as to why she moved in, and then obviously what happened and what you discovered.
So, yeah, I had a friend in high school who she was having some troubles at home. And, you know, as girlfriends do, you say, come to my house. And, you know, there was weekends she'd come over and stuff like that, as, you know, just sleepovers and that. And eventually she just moved in. The thing, you know, whatever was going on at home was just too much. And she moved in. And, you know, for a while everything was fine, because, you know, it was exciting. I had not only one of my best friends, you know, but it was like having a sister. Yay, finally. And then the tension started, and there was, it it was off, you know, it was just off. And then arguments started, and yeah, and I found out that Dad and her were in a sexual relationship. It was the end of the marriage as far as Mum was concerned, and quite rightly. And she moved out, and that was it. That was the end of it.
What grade were you in? How old were you guys when this happened?
14, or maybe almost 15. If we were 15, we would have only been just.
And how did you discover this was happening? How was that?
I walked in on them in bed. That's a sight to this day I wish I could scratch the back of my eyeballs and get rid of.
I'm sorry, that's a lot. To see your dad and your mate, who you obviously, yeah, like you said, you were an only child, you suddenly had a sister, and then that's unbelievable. I'm sorry. And so for your mum, obviously, as well, so that was, for her, that was it?
Yes. Yep, that was it. She was done. Because beforehand, before she moved out with the arguing and the stuff that started, there was, like I say, there was a lot of tension, and you know, in hindsight, because everything is in hindsight, isn't it, that there was, the game playing was happening. There was those games manipulations were going on, and I just didn't, I don't know, teenagers, you know, you're only thinking of yourself at the time. It's a state of teenage being, I suppose. And yeah, I didn't think, it honestly never crossed my mind what was going on. It never crossed my mind that they'd be doing what they were doing, but they were.
And so did they then continue the relationship?
Yeah, so of course with Mum and Dad splitting up, and the circumstances with my friend being, you know, involved, which was shocking to all the family. You know, nobody was happy or accepting of it. Everyone, quite rightly, was really shocked. So, you know, there was the whole, and because of it, and because it was certainly not the normal, you know, when a partner cheats and relationships break up. I mean, I think we can all agree on that it was quite exceptional circumstances. We ended up moving to Perth. So it was Dad and my friend and myself. And I've only just found out recently, actually, that some other family members were actually contacting Dad, asking about me, asking how I was. You know, they wanted to be in touch, and that continued even after we got to Perth. And he never told me. I didn't know, and I just thought the family had cut me off because I took it that it was my fault because I'd invited her into our home, and that's what broke up the marriage. So I took it that was my fault. Sorry, yeah, I've only just found this out in the last couple of months. There's been a few revelations, shall we say. Yeah.
I mean, you guys were literally kids. I mean, yeah, it's and you obviously know this as an adult, it's not your fault, but I see that, yeah, you'd feel it at the time. And the fact that he hid that from you, I mean, just, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So as part of moving to Perth for him, do you think, to get away from the potential shame of that situation, was that part of the move, or was there more to that?
No, it was just to get away. He was running away. He wanted to get away from the judgment. He wanted to start over. Yeah, it was running away is what it was.
And was there any potential, do you think, in his mind, running away from the potential legal ramifications of what he was doing?
Oh, he never stopped to think about legal ramifications. It's not how he thinks. It's not how he thinks. So He does what he wants to do.
And again, you're only a kid at the time, but in hindsight and in conversations you've had since, were family members at the time thinking about reporting the behaviour to the authorities in terms of, I mean, I know it was the 90s, was it? Or was it late 80s or?
Early 90s.
How old are you?
Early 90s.
So, I mean, I was in high school in the early 90s, and I don't know if culturally it's different in New Zealand, but if that went down, there would have been talk about reporting it to the police or at that age. I mean, but again, I know you're a kid and you were close to it, but I just wonder about what the other adults were doing at the time.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. And it's one I'd like some answers to about, and that will come in time. Not right at the moment. I don't know I can handle it. But I will be having those conversations with family members of why was nothing done to protect her, to protect me, to hold him accountable. Bearing in mind at that time he was also quite happy to allow me, as the same age as this friend, to enter into a relationship, be groomed by and enter into a relationship with a man almost 11 years older than myself too. So, you know, I've got a daughter at that age now, and it'll be over my dead body, I can tell you that. There's no way in hell someone 2 years older than her, I'd be looking at real close. Never mind 10. This just...
Wow, I'm sorry.
She's a child, and, by extension, so were we.
Yeah. No, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and just this conversation is making me feel quite unwell. I can't imagine you having lived through it. I'm so sorry.
Well, the thing is, he does what he wants. He does what he wants. It's, it's what he wanted.
Yeah. So, how did that end up? You obviously lived with them for a little while, but then what happened from there, just chronologically?
So we got to Australia, to Perth. We only ever lived in Perth. So we didn't move around a lot. She had a tragedy in her family. There was a death, very unexpected. Yeah, that was pretty much the catalyst for her leaving. For myself, the boyfriend from New Zealand, the older one, he then came over to Australia, and he ended up staying, and we got engaged and eventually got married. And we all lived in the same house until I'd had enough. And when I'd had enough was it was because of his breaking up of Steve and Michelle's marriage. I'd watched. It's not true. That makes it sound like I sat back and watched. There was behaviour all along the way that I saw. More of the game playing. There was lies. There was manipulation of people and places and events and timing. A classic example, and I think this was round about the time where I made that decision of I'm done, I've had enough, was round about this incident where he kept on going away. I remember he kept disappearing in the evenings, and I didn't know where he was going. I knew there was a woman involved. I'm not completely stupid. But I had suspicions that it was Michelle, because when we were all together, I remember he has this way where, believe it or not, he can be really, really charming. Really nice. Like, yes, he's got this nickname Grumpy, and yes, he can be. But when he wants something and he sets his mind to it, he can be really, really charming to get what he wants. So I'd sort of seen this developing, I guess, over time with their marriage and him inserting himself. He'd kept disappearing of evenings. I kept saying, well, where are you going? What, am I ever going to get to meet her? And he's like, no, don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, right, okay, sure. And this just kept going on and on and on. One evening, he came out of his room. He had showered, shaved, he had aftershave on, dressed nicely, was standing holding in his hands a birthday present with happy birthday on it, on the wrapping paper. I knew it was Michelle's birthday, and I just called it straight out and I said, you're going to see Michelle for her birthday. And he's standing there holding this parcel, goes, no, I'm not. F*** me. How stupid do you think I am? And I think that was just about very nearly the point, the moment where I went, I'm done. That's it. I just can't, I can't do this anymore. I can't. So, yeah, it was things like that, just, and it speaks volumes of, you look you dead in the eye and say, no, I'm not. I'm not going to see Michelle. I'm not going for a birthday present. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But no, I'm not. No, nothing to do with the birthday.
So is he a good storyteller then? Able to use his charm to manipulate and tell stories and build narratives? Is that something you saw over the years?
100%. 100%. Yep. Absolutely.
And it was mainly used for what purpose? I guess it would depend on the situation, or...
I guess anybody that manipulates, tells stories, is a storyteller. It's motive. It's about you want something, so you will say whatever to get the desired outcome, whatever it is that you want. And unfortunately, too many times I've seen it's blatant. It's just so freaking ridiculous. It's crazy. It makes you then question too when you have someone in your world, in your life, who consistently lies to you. I guess it's gaslighting. Was the term that's used these days. But they make you question your own reality. They make, honestly, and it's frightening when you step back from it and you can see what it is or what it was, and you just go, holy shit, that's nasty. That's just nasty. What a despicable human being that can behave like that just to get their own wants.
Reflecting on your mum and Graham's relationship, was you ever concerned for her safety or anything like that? Or was there any red flags in that relationship that are concerning, that might even link to, this case that we'll eventually talk about eventually? Sorry, we'll get there.
So I know what you're talking about. Yes, there was an incident. So it was that time that they separated when I was younger. Much younger. And Mum had gone round to the house that they both had, and at his request it was she was led to believe, to talk about the separation of goods, the chattels and the stuff, contact with me for him, things like that. Normal, but it was it was fine, amicable, maybe not completely, because what separation is, but, relatively okay until that moment, until that point. So she got there, I think he asked her to go into the bedroom, and which she did. She fought because everything was fine. And he had prepared. He had rope, like from a clothesline, a reel of that, and he tied her up. He beat her. She did go to the hospital. The police were involved. It was horrendous. I don't believe that any charges were ever laid. by the police. But again, it's a context of the time. You know, we're talking when I was a little girl, as I would tell the kids here, back when dinosaurs walked the earth, you know, a long time ago. And back then, you know, domestic violence was viewed differently, very differently. It wasn't, you know, a lot more was got away with back then.
Wow. And you did mention, I guess, and so thank you for sharing, that's obviously a horrendous story, but the part of it that jumped out, and you mentioned when you're chatting to Liam, I think, is the premeditated nature of that. Do you want to, maybe, is there anything you could speak to that?
It was absolutely planned. Again, you don't have rope and a knife in the bedroom and ask someone to come over and into that room without having a plan. The fact is, he tied her up, he beat her, and those materials were there waiting. That's planning. That's a premeditated plan. There's no other way to word that. It is what it is, whether he likes to think of it, and I know my mother sure as heck doesn't, but it happened. It is what it is.
Is there any more you wanted to say about that side of things before we sort of move on to the Kehlets, or?
No, not this moment.
When you initially heard about your dad's, he'd gone on this camping trip, he was the only one that came back, and some of the circumstances around it, what were your initial thoughts? Did you jump to worst case scenario, accident? Where was your mind at that stage?
Of course, accident crossed my mind. I mean, even knowing him, it doesn't, someone can be a really grumpy, manipulating, gaslighting arsehole. It doesn't make them a murderer, necessarily. I mean, you know, because you've got to be fair, right? Without the facts, you don't know. Did I absolutely think it was possible? And did that thought cross my mind? 100%, I won't lie. Yes, it did. I'll own that. Did I want to believe it? And to this day, do I want to believe it? No. But that's purely for selfish reasons, because I don't want to be related to someone that can do that. I don't think anybody wants to. And I've always said, and I'll still stand by it, I do believe, without a doubt, he knows more than he's saying. Without a doubt. And I think that's pretty clear from all the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the queries that come out of from what he says, his behaviour. It's just I don't think that's how someone would behave. I mean, I know if my friends were out there missing, try and stop me. You couldn't.
Yeah, no, you'd be out there, I think, every weekend searching through the mine shafts yourself, especially if you knew how to get down them, which he does.
Well, exactly. He's got the skills, and and it's like when Liam asked me if there was anything I wanted to ask him, and the obvious question is, Dad, did you do it? Well, no, that's not what I want to ask him. The question still stands. If these were your friends, why the hell are you not doing anything to at least clear your own name, fool? Well, you're not doing yourself any favours. Why are you not doing that? Sorry, and I'm only bringing it up because I just watched the thing the other day. You might not go knocking on someone's tent at 2 a.m, but given that he actually left to go prospecting for 18 hours on his own, he didn't exactly leave Ray and Jennie on good terms. He was a bit shitty because the dogs ran away again. Wouldn't you at least leave a note before just buggering off to make sure? Because he's left, going by his story, he's left them on bad terms.
One of my questions, and you just answered it, was going to be what would you say to Graham in regards to this story if you did have the chance? But that's obviously that is, you've kind of just answered that. But
he's all about self. Well, then there you go. There's the question. Why aren't you at least looking out for yourself? That's just foolish. If that's the way perspective he wants to take by making his house like a fortress, by avoiding the media, by not being helpful, then look at it from that perspective then.
And I guess just, he obviously worked with Ray and Jennie. What do you understand the dynamics of that relationship to be? They were very excited, obviously, about this trip. It's almost as if they were certain they were getting gold on this trip for some reason, which is not normal. I mean, what do you think the dynamics of that relationship were leading up to the trip?
Odd. Bearing in mind too, I haven't had any communication with him for 20 years. Like I said, if he wanted something, he went for it. And he would move mountains and he was just very, pig-headed has been used in the family. That's a, most people are stubborn. No, he took it to the next level. He could be pig-headed. So, bearing that in mind. As far as his friendship and the dynamics of that, I don't know, other than they worked together. I believe that Jennie went to see him for a sore back, and then Ray went with her to an appointment. That's all I know, and I don't know how accurate that is. I think I heard somewhere, or somebody told, I'm not sure, that they had lunch together when they were on site at the same time, same shift. So, but that's how it starts. And like I say, he could be very charming. You heard that from Rob. He was Dad's friend. Yeah, we know how that one worked out. So that's how it goes. That's how it goes. I have said before, and I stand by and it is only opinion, that I believe Jennie was the target. That was his want, and that was his mission. And I think that was the reason for all of this happening.
From what you've observed with Graham's treatment towards girls/women over the years, did Jennie fit the profile of the type of woman your dad was tended to, be attracted towards?
Well, without knowing Jennie, because obviously I didn't know her, but from what I've heard, and seen her mucking around in the home videos and that, she seems like quite a character. Yeah, absolutely. She's, and this is just my impression. She's quite vivacious. I've heard it said that she's very strong-willed. That, country girl that can do anything. She's not afraid of getting in a tractor. She's not afraid of quad bikes. She's not afraid of the bush. Those are all the things that he would be attracted to. That's the type of person. Yeah, absolutely. And she's beautiful.
And we've touched on this as well, and it is a bit of a confronting question, but do you believe Graham's capable of, I mean, the coroner has deemed Ray's death a homicide?
Gosh, it is a tough question. Look, he's absolutely capable, okay? I think any human being is capable, pushed in the right circumstances, with the right other people, with the right triggers, with the right environmental, maybe alcohol involved or whatever, with the right, anybody, I believe is capable. Given his how I know him, though, and the circumstances that I do know, yeah, absolutely, and it does centre around Jennie. There's just, do I believe he did it? Look, I said to Dave, and I don't know, maybe he probably doesn't care to hear it. I'm 99% sure that he did. And I only hold out the 1% because I wasn't there. And I guess there's part of that 1% too is, like I said before, purely selfish, self-centered reasoning is, I don't want to be related to that. But do I think he did it? Yeah, I do. On the balance of probability of what I do know, and I certainly don't know everything other than just not being there. You know, there's information that I'm sure hasn't been shared with me for various reasons, which is fine. On the balance of probability of what I know, he 100% knows more than he's saying, and there is that overwhelming, yes, he did.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for your honesty. And again, I know it's just, and we're only speculating, and I just hope, like these are the questions that really a judge and a jury need to answer. But I just hope the family get a chance to at least see the process through, because it's just so open-ended at the moment that it's been 10 years of no answers.
There is a heck of a lot of evidence and a hell of a lot of circumstantial evidence. And I guess, you know, when you're talking, and I'm not a lawyer, don't work in law, but, you know, the overarching thing, when you're talking criminal law, defense only needs reasonable doubt. And unless it's an open and shut 100% case, then authorities aren't going to take it any further. They can't put, or won't, sorry, not can't, won't put it to a jury. So in those other, you know, in that tiny percentage that's left, those options have to be considered. And there's your reasonable doubt.
If you were to describe Graham and his general characteristics to someone from your experience, what would that be, just in summary? Just some characteristics about Graham and his character, or who he is as a person?
Generally, he comes across as a helpful sort of person. I think people from what I've saw over the years, people either like him or they don't, and it's a pretty instant sort of reaction. He's a chess player too, literally a chess player, so strategy is big. He can be very secretive, obviously. He's never had any really, really close friends, like besties, you know. He's had friends, yes, absolutely. But never a bestie. And I've spoken to others who've known him a lot longer than me, and even going back to, you know, when he was a child. That it's always been that way. So, you know, there is that element of withholding from people, you know.
And I guess on that note, maybe this is a good time to talk about his childhood nickname. It seems strange that he would use that terminology during the coroner's inquest. You know, he literally used that terminology, that it was Ray's desire to keep the trip secret squirrel, as Ray referred to it, was what he said. And now, I mean, that is I think I've heard of that terminology before, but it's not that common, really. So that's why, I mean, it must have jumped out to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually asked, I first saw it in reference with Jennie and Ray, from my memory, I think it was an ABC News article. It was online, and it was part of the headline was secret squirrel in, you know, little, excuse me for doing air quote things. And it was because of, you know, I've known that phrase growing up. So I actually asked Dave, you know, where did this come from? Is this a phrase that was part of Ray and Jennie's, you know, their language, the family, was it a phrase that they used? And he's like, no, I've no idea where it's come from, you know. And I So I told him that, well, that was his nickname from when he was little. You can edit out his reply, but I'm pretty sure you can imagine what it was. It was along the lines of "fuck me." So it was, again, I mean, it doesn't prove anything, but it's something else, And the thing, my experience with him, and I don't know what to call him anymore. I don't know whether to call him Dad or my father or Graham, or I don't know what to call him. I really don't. He when he lies, when he's manipulating and lying, there is always a grain of truth. Okay, so there is always a grain of truth, and that's what. And I God, you just triggered a memory. Oh wow, oh my God, wow. I can. It's literally just popped into my head. I can remember him saying, I can hear it like it was yesterday. And I can't remember the context of the conversation, but he actually said that's how you make a lie believable, is it's got a grain of truth. Holy moly, where did that come from? Yeah, that's just come to me. And it's not wrong. That is how you make a lie believable, right? So, he knows that, clearly. Yeah, wow, that's just it's blown my tiny mind.
No, it's very telling. And it's the more I read through particularly the coroner's, his testimony, the more I go through it, it's just the amount of inconsistencies and even, and as we saw in Liam's story, the complete reversals of memory are astounding to me. Why do you think he was drawn to, I mean, he worked in the military, emergency services. I know he had a snake wrangling certification on his car. He's kind of drawn to positions of influence. Why do you think he, as a character, is drawn to those types of positions?
So, look, I like to read textbooks for fun. I'm a bit of a nerd. How people, because of the way he is, because of the way I grew up, I guess psychology's always been really interesting. So I like to read psychology textbooks. I like to research. I like to, so that's going to explain what I'm about to say. Well, it is about control, but it's what psychopaths do. Okay, so what they do is they create a need, and then they behave in a way that you perceive that they fulfill that need. So what that does is it lowers people's instincts, their inhibitions. It creates what's called a blind spot. So first off, when you meet someone, for example, if they say to you, you've got this farm, you want to, obviously wouldn't it be nice? Because that was, I believe the goal was that they were working hard in the mine so that they could eventually be full-time on their farm there, which was great. What a dream, what a life. That'd be amazing. But he presented this opportunity. Now their need for him was that he had the experience, he went prospecting before, he's a safety officer, so it's a safe place, he's a safe person to take with them. So even if, and I don't know, I'm speculating, but even if either or both Ray and Jennie's first instinct was, well, he's a grumpy old cantankerous bastard, let's stay away from him, or he's an odd duck is the other term that I've heard used. The fact that he can fulfill this need of theirs creates a psychological blind spot, and it sort of overrides it. It blocks out those reservations that they might have had. Okay, so he's fulfilling a need. Once he's in that position, yes, and that's when it becomes about control. Okay, so then the manipulation can be sort of stepped up. Because it's, you can gauge, because psychopathic personality, they're very good at reading people. They're good at reading facial cues, body language, assessing the situation. So, part of him going to the farm, even before they did abseiling, which I find interesting, he made the comment that he'd only been down to the farm 3 times in 3 years. That's not a lot for someone who's meant to be helping them prepare for something they've never done before that's risky, by the way. Observation. So he may have been down there just in the context of getting to know them, which then, of course, gives him more information. How else can I then build on that need, because that blind spot's been created, so I can work on that and build that up. Now, I mean, I am not a qualified psychologist. Hell, I'm not even a counsellor. But it just is what it is, okay? That you can Google it. It's a thing. I'm not saying he's a psychopath. I don't know. I'm not a shrink. But let's just say in all the research and reading and that I've done over a long time, there's a few markers, shall we say.
No, that's fascinating. And Ray you can tell in their messages to each other, he was very much dependent on Graham. We're not going down the holes without you anyway. And Graham held, because it is really intimidating. I've looked into prospecting myself, and there's so many layers of uncertainty that to be able to go with someone who's done it that many times before, you'd kind of defer a lot of the authority and trust to them, which I think they did.
Absolutely. He's got the prospecting experience. I remember gold pans being in the garage from primary school age. I do know there were metal detectors at some point, but it wasn't a big thing. It was more, we'll have a go when we go fishing or camping sort of thing. So I guess, there has always been that prospecting sort of there lurking in the background, maybe as an interest for him. So maybe, and again, being devil's advocate, maybe that was just being in WA gives him that opportunity to do that. I went to France. You hell right, I'm going to eat snails. I'm going to try frog's legs. Both very good, by the way. But, because you do, when you're in an environment, you take advantage of those things, right? Because that's the experience of being there. So, but you see, he had the need of, he was a safety officer. So he's safety. He's got prospecting experience. He had abseiling experience. He was part of a prospecting association. So there's that wealth of knowledge that he will have gathered, as you do when you join a club. He had equipment. That's a lot of need then that he has that they want. That's how you create. If it's deliberate, and it is an if, because we don't know, right? I wasn't there. I don't know about you, but I wasn't there. If that was his plan, then that's how one would go about it.
No, that totally makes sense. And it's been reported a number of times, and I've seen it said, and just looking at him, he's an older guy now, but he's always seemed to be a pretty fit guy. Like he's taken some time to, work on his physical well-being and fitness. Was that always the case growing up? Was he into working out and being fit and martial arts and all that stuff? Can you tell us about that side of his personality and lifestyle?
Yeah, no, he's always been quite fit. He's never been a gym bunny. But yeah, he's always been fit. And yeah, he enjoyed his martial arts. He's not a big person. But so maybe, I don't know if that played a part as a kid, the little ones always get picked on. That's just schoolyard stuff. That happens. It happens today. So I don't know if that's where the want for the martial arts came from. I don't know. That's another thing. Here you go. You're jogging my memory now. That's another thing that he always made really, really clear. Okay. So he always said to me, you never, ever underestimate someone's size. Never. And that's where then these, I don't know if you can see, but my pinky fingers are a little bit bent. You see So he would squeeze it on the nail bed really hard. It's like a pressure point. And he was big on pressure points. And hence, I don't know, I'll show you, that arm goes, ow, a lot further than that one. I can't get my right arm up my back. Yeah, it hurts. So, yeah, that's where all this would come from. He also always said, never pick up a weapon because it can be used against you. These are your weapons. Interesting comparable with Ray's injuries.
I guess, just broadly speaking, what has it been like for you living with this story in the background all these years? It's been a decade, and I can only imagine it's kind of hung over your shoulder. And how has that been for you?
Really, really horrible. You know, I've not lived with the sort of loss that the Kehlets and the Keegans have had, and then that are still going through. I've been very fortunate not to have experienced that. I don't want to, but it doesn't, you know, so I'll never say I understand, because I can't. I just can't. I don't believe it's something you can truly understand until you've walked in those shoes. But I empathise with the ongoing grief, the ongoing loss, the ongoing questions. You know, that's truly terrible. That's just, that must be horrendous. You know, I walked away from him. I cut him out of my life because I couldn't deal with it anymore, but I had the privilege of doing that. You know, I was an only child. I didn't have any siblings, and then the relationships with them that may have been lost because of it, you know, those rifts that happen. So it was easy for me to, well, and easy is the wrong word too, because it was a hellish time. It was a hellish time, and it's really been tough, because as much as I wasn't there, you haven't had contact with him for a long time. I've tried to share what I know to give context, an understanding of patterns of behaviour and personality type, and that you know, you never really change in someone. That, you know, it's just who they are. It doesn't matter how much you grow as a person, or grow up, or just grow emotionally, or whatever. There's certain things don't change about people.
And on that note as well, something that kind of, and I wanted to encourage you in, but I'll let you talk about it first, is you did talk about with Liam a bit of a sense of, you felt a sense of shame, I guess, in connection to this case. Why do you feel that?
Because it just is simply, you know, like I said, his eyes are looking back at me. I have his blood in my veins. They didn't put it in there, but I have, and he has vitiligo, which is like what Michael Jackson has when he loses the pigment in his skin. I have that on my hands. So does he. You know, there's about, I think, 2% of the population of the world have it. So it's not like it's exactly a common thing. So every time I look at my hands, I see him. You know, it's just that shame of being associated and related even. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah. I just thank you for your bravery in sharing your story, and I hope that shame doesn't linger, because it's not yours to hold. So yeah, I thought I'd give you the opportunity, if you'd like, and again, it's totally up to you, but are there any direct words to the Kehlet and Keegan families that you'd like to share? Yeah, I'll just leave that one with you for a second.
Oh God, there's so much I'd like to say. Oh God, I'm going to cry. Like I said, I'm a huggy person. I just want to gather them up and hug them because it's beyond description. Like I said, I can't understand it. I hope I stay in that privileged position of never being part of that club, of understanding their pain, because it just must be beyond all comprehension. They need answers, they want answers, and I gave my word to Dave. I said I would, he asked, I would do. I would do whatever he asked. And I hope that I'm there when they get those answers, whatever they are. We're not all like that.
Yeah.
Please, and it seems really selfish to make that about our family. But know that there is a big part of our family that our hearts go out to them.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. And I guess what would you say to any other people out there who might be thinking about coming forward with information? They might know a bit more. They might be out. What would you say to them? Do you have any encouraging words or any words for those people who might be on the edge of sharing?
Well, I could give them the mummy growl about if you don't, then you're complicit. I could wag my finger and give them the mummy growl. Or I could say, if I can do it, if I can step forward, given my sense of shame, given my feeling of not really having anything to offer, but even if it's just emotional support, then do it. For the love of everything holy, please. If after all those years, decades of not being there, if I've given nothing but one tiny drop in the ocean of context or understanding of something, it's worth it. It's worth it, so do it. Please do it.
I think, hearing, Jenny's kids talk, they just want to know where their mum is so they can bring her home. If you had the opportunity to stand before anyone who might know that, whether it's Graham or someone else, what would you... I know this is a tough question, but how would you implore them to just do the human thing?
If they actually know where Jenny is, whether they had anything involvement or not, if they actually know where Jenny is and do not come forward, then I'd suggest they probably need more than words to encourage them. Sure. What can you say to someone who's prepared to sit on that type of secret?
Oftentimes when I speak to people, I don't like to leave without giving you the chance. If there's still a thought or some ideas burning in your mind that you didn't get to share yet.
Yeah, look, I've got a million questions. And I went through the coroner's report, paragraph by paragraph. I tried to be as neutral as I could, and there was times where I stepped away from it for a couple of days because of my opinion about what's happened, and about his involvement. And it went from whatever it was, 180 pages, something like that, to I think it ended up almost 300 pages, because I under every paragraph I went through, I had questions, comments, pointing out contradictions. I had queries. There were things where I tried to be balanced in it. Is it reasonable for him to go out for 18 hours prospecting? Everyone says no, but I went, well, hang on, he used to do long distance line haul truck driving. So there were things that I went, well, hang on, that I can see, that I can understand, Some of those since then have changed with what I've learned since of his patterns of behaviour, how he is, his way and all that. So some of that's changed, in other ways it's opened up more questions. I don't believe he's ever going to come clean. I don't. It's too entrenched in who he is and the way he is. So, you know, I've tried to be balanced, tried to be. But look, in all honesty, on the balance of probability, I would say the vast majority of people think he's got involvement. You know, it just is what it is.
In future episodes of Some Kind of Closure, we'll continue to explore the key details of Ray and Jennie's final trip, speaking with family members, experts, and others closely connected to the case. If you or anyone you know has information about this case, you can contact us via our Facebook page, The Man in the Hole. As the series unfolds, we're hopeful that more people will come forward with insights that could help piece together a clearer picture and ultimately bring the families some kind of closure and hopefully justice. It's also important to note that a $2 million reward is currently being offered for information leading to a conviction in this case. This is one of the largest rewards in Australian history, offering a powerful incentive for anyone with knowledge to come forward. If you have any information related to this case, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Even the smallest details could make a huge difference. That number again, 1800 333 000. We acknowledge the Badimaya people of the Yamaji Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands where this episode was recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to this unique and beautiful place. Thank you for listening to Some Kind of Closure. If you found this episode valuable, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free way to support the show, and it really helps us reach more people. This is a fully independent production. If you'd like to support the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Just get in touch via our Facebook page. Lastly, we acknowledge the presumption of innocence for all individuals discussed in this series. Any opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers. Thanks again for listening.
We've only got one side of the story.
They were just everyday people.
We find Jennie, we will find out what happened.
And the truth will prevail.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.